Breaking down the ABCD, originally published in April of 2017 by Nadia Elahi. ABCD, American-born confused Desi. Desi is the term used to describe anyone of South Asian descent, and an ABCD is the child of immigrant parents from a South Asian country who was born or raised in America, and according to the rest of the definition, he or she is confused about his or her identity, living between two cultures, the American and their parents' homeland. I say he or she, but from my experience, it seems to target girls more. But to be fair, there is a comedic Indian film titled ABCD, American-Born Confused Desi, released in 2013, featuring two American-born Desi men as the leads. The idea of it is similar to how the Hispanic or Latin communities use the word coconut to describe children of immigrants living in the U.S. as brown on the outside, white on the inside. In fact, friend and colleague Daniel Ruiz recently published his first novel on the subject, aptly titled Coconut Verses. From my perspective, these terms enforce that anything American must be white. I am all too familiar with the acronym ABCD, but I wanted to do a little research on it to see what was out there in Google land, and what do you know? I came across this article, 28 Ways You Are Absolutely an American-Born Confused Desi Girl, from BuzzFeed. This article is clearly aimed at females. Overall, the list is humorous, and the items are paired with silly clips from movies and other American and Indian pop culture references, and I'm sure fellow Desis reading it would get a chuckle out of it and nod their head in agreeance of the items on the list, especially the ladies. ABCD was originally referred to Desis who were only Indian, but it has transformed to include other South Asian countries like Pakistan or Bangladesh. So for each item on the list that mentions India, I changed it to Pakistan, and it's pretty much the same. Number 1 made me laugh right away, and if anyone familiar with the Bollywood stars Kajol and Shah Rukh Khan, then you probably thought they should have been married as well. They are, sort of, the equivalent to America's Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. I agreed with a lot of the other items on the list, especially number 4 and number 5. Here's number 4. You did a lot of extracurriculars in high school, and one of them was speech and debate. Yep, except it was mainly the drama club and performing in school plays for me. Number 5 said, but dating was definitely not allowed. Oh, that was a definite for me. My next blog will be all about the world of dating between the two cultures, so stay tuned. But when I got to the bottom of the list, I had to pause for a bit with number 28, which read, and you have no problem at all with being called an American-born confused Desi. I raised my hand. BuzzFeed article. Yes. Pakistani Southern Belle. I do have a problem with that. My instant reaction was to disagree with this because I don't think it's a term to embrace, and I had a problem with being called an ABCD. It's been years since I've been called one, at least to my face. And by the way, this acronym is used within the community of fellow South Asians. I guess it could be used as a racial slur by a Trump supporter like the one I dealt with who called me the ugly Muslim dung, Muslim, spelled wrong. But that would mean she or anyone else using it as a racial epithet would have to acquire some knowledge on the subject, do the actual homework of learning about another community of people. But the professor in me digresses about homework. My main gripe with the term ABCD dealt with how it was used to describe me. Now, before going further, I should preface this. It was used in all good fun and teasing among my siblings and cousins living in Monroe, especially from the male family members. Again, its emphasis placed on the girls, and it primarily occurred during my teen and college years. And I think the emphasis targeting girls stems from the fact that there are different rules for girls than there are for boys in all Desi communities. Simply put, boys got away with doing things that girls could not. However in good fun it was to call me an ABCD, it still stung because it was like being accused of betraying your parents' home country because maybe you didn't speak Urdu or Punjabi. That basically, shame on me, for I was not Pakistani enough. It wasn't always easy being Pakistani growing up in my hometown when there wasn't a huge community of South Asians to begin with. In 1972, Monroe's local newspaper, the New Star, featured an article of my family shortly after my dad and mom immigrated to the States, joining my uncle and his family who had already been in Monroe since the 60s. Monroe, Louisiana was originally home to my uncle's wife, a Baptist missionary he met when she was in Pakistan. They returned to her hometown of Monroe, which is how Monroe became my hometown. Much gratitude is owed to my aunt Eva Jean Elahi, and I know she and my uncle dealt with their fair share of racial conflict during the 60s, being an interracial couple at a very unpopular time in American history, but I know they were happy to have more family from Pakistan join them. The headline of the article read, "West Pakistani family reunited here." Immigrants moving to a small southern town like Monroe in 1972 was newsworthy at the time. The picture below depicts the article. The sitar my Uncle Maurice is holding and the sword on the wall were mainly decorations he had, but the newspaper really wanted everyone pictured with the items to show off where they came from, according to my mom. Aunt Eva Jean and her daughter Esther, my cousin, sit behind Uncle Maurice with my other uncle, Marcus, to the right. My parents, Morgan and Venus, are on the far left, Mom dressed in a traditional sari, with Dad behind her sporting his 70s hairstyle and Tom Selleck mustache. This image is the epitome of what the United States of America means to me. More South Asians immigrated later to Monroe, including more family, but throughout the years of my childhood and into high school, the community of fellow Dacies was pretty slim. So why was I called an ABCD? I was an ABCD for wanting to do more American things that included dating, staying out later with my friends, especially when I got to college, being selfish for not wanting to go to family gatherings, going out to bars or clubs, and the biggie, moving across the country to LA when I was 22 to pursue a career in acting, possibly another blog post. And the most ironic thing about it all, I was considered a late bloomer among my American friends, but at the same time, I was moving way too fast within my family and the Pakistani part of my life. To most of my friends, I was introverted Nadia, a prude who always followed the rules. To my family, I was the wild sister, the attention-needing middle child, the black sheep. In high school, my friends went out on dates and attended prom. They wished the same for me, but I don't think they knew how to respond to my struggles of things that, to me, appeared simple and easy for them. My friends in college didn't understand why I didn't live on campus in dorms like they did, or they couldn't really empathize to why I wasn't allowed to stay out past 9 on a weeknight. Since my university was in my hometown, it just made sense to my parents that I live at home, something I was on board with until a social life was starting to develop during my sophomore year of college, and then the ABCD in me just kicked in even more. It was a struggle to figure out which side to play on at times, the Pakistani side versus the American side, not to mention the times I had to deal with ignorance based on how I looked. I mean, who wouldn't be confused? At home, my parents spoke to me in Punjabi and I answered back in English. They didn't teach my siblings and me the language. They didn't think it would be useful since we were being raised in the U.S. I fully understood Punjabi, but I couldn't and still can't speak it fluently. Hearing them speak the language to us at home was normal. It was comfortable. However, hearing them speak it in public was, I'm ashamed to admit, embarrassing at times, especially when I saw people staring at us at the supermarket or out at restaurants, laughing or making fun of my parents for the foreign language they spoke. When I was 7, I took gymnastics, wanting to follow in the footsteps of my namesake, Nadia Comaneci, the perfect 10 Romanian gymnast from the 76 Olympics. I was so excited to be taking gymnastics as were my parents since I kept using the couch as a trampoline. I remember posing in pictures when I got my new red and white striped leotard outfit. I ended up being the only kid of color in the entire gym, which was fine as I was already getting used to this in some respect. But one day, after a month or so of lessons, I was standing in line with the other girls in my class, waiting to mount the vault, and a girl turned around and told me my skin looked like barbecue sauce. Everyone stared at me, and I didn't know how to respond to her. And I didn't think my skin being compared to the chocolatey brown condiment was appealing back then, and despite my love for the sauce today. The girl was not malicious with her remark. In fact, she was quite adorable, being about 7 as well, and like most kids that age, she was stating an observation. But my 7-year-old self never returned to class after that day. I just told my parents I wasn't interested in gymnastics anymore. I lied. It took me years to finally tell my mother the real reason why I quit gymnastics. I'll also never forget how embarrassed I was when the kid in junior high asked me if I was a camel jockey. I didn't know exactly what he meant, but the fact that he was inquiring about my race was very clear since he was laughing when he asked. And when I did finally assume he meant if I came from the land of Aladdin and his magic lamp, I started second guessing if people in Pakistan actually rode on camels. Was he asking me a trick question to test my knowledge of my parents' home country, to make sure I wasn't becoming too American? Before I mumbled a no to him, I could feel the awkward stares of the other students nearby watching, waiting for my response. The dichotomy of being both Pakistani and American, mixed with the reactions of how other people viewed me, was clearly causing a confused state of mind. So how did I blend the two? How did I reconcile the two worlds to avoid being a confused Desi girl? I think my last trip to Pakistan in 1996 when I was 20 helped in some way, or at least pushed me in the direction of understanding who I was, not just to society and my family, but most importantly to myself. Since then, here's what I've done to connect with both my Pakistani and American sides. Number one, after that trip in 1996 to Pakistan, I chose to get my nose pierced when I saw how beautiful it looked on my Pakistani cousins. I love my nose stud and feel naked without it today. Number two, and to balance out the nose piercing, I got my navel pierced. Yep, I did that when I was 22. The result of my first heartbreak. Getting a crazy haircut wasn't dramatic enough. Number three, before moving back to LA in 2006, I wrote down Mom's recipes for chicken and beef curry and have watched her closely many times over the years when she's made roti. When I make curry, it still doesn't come out like hers, but it's important to me to have those recipes. And if I don't have time to cook, I'll eat the closest thing that reminds me of Mom's cooking at Lal Mirch, an Indian restaurant in Studio City where I order their lamb pasanda, spicy enough to open up my sinuses, but not too hot to burn my lips. Number four, I love to celebrate all American holidays, especially Thanksgiving. I roast up a turkey, bake up all the sides, including my favorite, sweet potato casserole with a chopped pecan and brown sugar topping. After all, I am Southern. Furthermore, I scout the best places that serve the all-American cheeseburger and fries, or grill up my own homemade burgers on my grill. Number five, as an educator today, I introduce literature in my English courses written by South Asian writers, such as Jhumpa Lahiri or Bapsi Sidhwa. Likewise, I also teach nonfiction works that integrate American history and its context from writers like Henry David Thoreau, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., and Ta-Nehisi Coates. Number six, I teach an excerpt from Benazir Bhutto's Reconciliation to my students, introducing many of them to the first female Prime Minister of Pakistan. Many of them are shocked to learn that a country like Pakistan had a female leader. Number seven, to break down restricted gender roles at family functions, and because I enjoy it, I'm the only female sipping wine along with the males, unless my sister is joining me. Number eight, I support the Malala Fund, founded by Malala Yousafzai, and everything this amazing young woman does for girls to have an education, especially in her home country, the same as my parents. Number nine, I chose and continue to explore opportunities I would otherwise be denied in Pakistan, like moving to California on my own, to embrace an independence away from my parents, knowing it was because of them that I could do it. And number 10, I keep the newspaper clipping of my parents and extended family on my bulletin board above my desk to always remind me of the sacrifices they made and to remember where I come from. I'm still a work in progress. And there's more I could add to this list. Even at 40, unmarried, I'm an anomaly within the Pakistani culture. But I fit in perfectly with many women my age in the U.S., especially here in Los Angeles, who are not married but are professionals in their chosen careers. It doesn't mean I don't want to be married, but I choose not to dwell on it and allow it to define who I should or should not be. After all, I may not be a Mrs., but I am a prof. And though the confusion has certainly lessened, I am still not sure Desi girls should embrace the confusion as the article suggests. So instead of being an American-born confused Desi girl, why not shoot for being an American-born confident Desi woman? So, who's with me?